Direct Action organised this meeting in the interest of building international solidarity between the Australian left and workers and popular movements in Indonesia. This isn't only because of the moral obligation of Australian people to extend solidarity to our neighbours, the Indonesian working class, which numbered 114 million people in the working class in Indonesia this May, or other working people in Indonesia such as farmers, as well as students and urban poor and so on. But also because international solidarity for us has to be front and central to the left in Australian politics today, because we can't ignore the fact that Australian workers and students are politically passive often, if not outright racist or sexist. But a contradiction for Australian capitalism is that the passivity of the working classes today, and we're certainly not saying that this passivity won't change in the future and change quite unexpectedly, but today it's based on the relative privilege that the Australian corporations can afford to offer workers here, or at least some workers here, compared to, say, workers in Jakarta, where ZELY ARIANE's union, the Solidarity Alliance for Labour Struggle, is mostly based, I understand. However, the super profits of Australian corporations come from super exploitation of the third world. Some 400 Australian companies operate in Indonesia in mining, construction, finance, food and transport. They benefit from low wages, easy foreign investment laws and low taxation on foreign corporations. The advantageous conditions for foreign capital in Indonesia were established historically by the military dictatorship in that country, running from 1965 until 1998. The military dictatorship, which was supported economically, politically, and in fact directly militarily by successive Australian governments, and especially the Australian Labor Party. This dictatorship not only killed trade unionists, in fact all of its opponents, it also courted the International Monetary Fund and foreign capital investment on the terms of the IMF. So a danger for Australia's rulers is that working people here will start to question whether the relative privilege, access to large cars, widescreen TVs, bigger houses, is really worth it, when in fact it all depends on a world system that excludes the majority of people from even basic human rights like clean water, quality education or humane accommodation and so on. How liberating is it? Is a widescreen television when to watch the news makes a lot of people in Australia weep in front of the television, literally. We've had tens of thousands of well-meaning Australians weeping watching the coverage of the East Timor referendum in 1999 out of sympathy with the East Timorese people. And this contradiction's heightened when all the system presently has to offer working people, even in Australia and countries like it, is increasing job insecurity, unemployment and wage cuts, when manufacturing is today being more rapidly shifted offshore, precisely because wages are lower in the third world and particularly low in Indonesia. The contradictions opened up still further when there are ongoing massive popular struggles in third world countries such as Indonesia, which people here can sympathise with and support. And today, in fact for more than 10 years in Indonesia, there have been large ongoing mass struggles by workers, farmers, urban poor people and students. The missing link so far, or part of the missing link, is that people here don't really know that that's happening. And that's where the international solidarity movement has to step in. I won't go on, but I do want to introduce ZELY ARIANE from the Political Committee of the Poor, People's Democratic Party. In 2007, there was a split in the People's Democratic Party, or the PRD as it's often referred to in the Indonesian acronym, over the party's orientation to the 2009 elections. The PRD, or People's Democratic Party, was founded in 1996 out of the increasing waves of mass democratic struggle the Reformasi movement that led to the fall of the military regime in Indonesia in 1998. The party became the most important left party after its founding in 1996 in Indonesia and played a central leadership role politically orienting the grassroots of the Reformasi movement in successfully, and in fact only partially, of getting rid of the military dictatorship. The PRD and other grassroots organisations in the National Liberation Party of Unity, or Papanas, together had failed to gain registration as an electoral party in 2009 elections due to legislation aimed at excluding parties from registration. In response to this legal block, a section of the PRD leadership argued that the PRD and Papanas should join with one or another of the already registered electoral parties, and in that way running the elections. All of the already registered electoral parties in Indonesia were in fact highly conservative and coming from the same political elite. ZELY ARIANE and a minority of the PRD national leadership argued against this road, saying that it represented an overestimation of Parliament, which they argued could not create fundamental societal change and would in practice bury the politics, the independent pro-poor politics of the People's Democratic Party inside an elite-dominated electoral machine. Before the debate could be had out in the branches and the grassroots of the People's Democratic Party, ZELY and the national leadership minority were expelled from the party and told the debate was over. The expelled comrades publicly launched the Political Committee of the Poor, People's Democratic Party, which ZELY is the national spokesperson of, on January 31, 1998. They launched it under the banner of Reject Cooperation and Co-optation, that is with the capitalist political elite, to defend an independent mass action perspective and win the majority of PRD members, as well as PRD influenced workers, students, women and urban poor to that same perspective. In the 2009 parliamentary elections, Didasari, who led the electoralist wing of the PRD, ran as a candidate for the Star Reform Party, an Islamic party with no historical attachment to the left. She received less than 1% of the vote and was not elected to Parliament. More recently, Didasari has commenced a campaign of public support for the presidential candidacy of Yusuf Kala, the head of Golkar Party, which was the ruling party of Indonesia's 33-year military dictatorship, and a former Army General Wiranto, who's known for his role in disappearing Indonesian activists in 1997-98. We're lucky to have ZELY ARIANE here with us. She's the national spokesperson, as I said, of Political Committee of the Poor, People's Democratic Party. She's also the Deputy Secretary of the Solidarity Alliance for Labour Struggle. Thanks, ZELY.